Hey friends, welcome to another Adobe Live Photoshop challenge. My name is Cyn Lagos. I'm happy to be here with y'all on our last day of our Photoshop challenge. We've done so much, folks. It's been super fun and you've gotten some cool assets out of it too. I hope, because I have. It's been quite cool, actually. So I hope you've been able to dive into some of these tools and it's gotten you to open up Photoshop with a new perspective. That's always a good accomplishment on this end. All right, so I want to talk today about our ways of showcasing our work and how we can use Photoshop and Photoshop Artboards as a marketing tool for our workflows when we showcase our projects. Okay, so let's jump in here. On this site. Maybe you're familiar with this site. If you're familiar with this site, jump on the chat and say what it is. I think the YouTube chat will be a little bit more puzzled than the other chat, but this is important because in the process of learning where to showcase your work, you definitely have to ask yourself the question, why do I want to showcase my work in this space? Why does it matter for me? For example, I'm a photographer, I'm a designer, I do a little bit of video. My God, I love to showcase my work, however, right? So I want to be able to find a space where there is an audience that will respect and understand and love to see more of the way I create my work. Behance has been that place for me. It has been that place for quite a bit, actually, so much so that I've been showcasing a lot of my work here more frequently. So let's explore a little bit about what I do here on Behance. This is going to be interesting because, hold on, let's start here. All right, so on Behance, you can create a project out of their own template, right? Like you can begin right here from scratch, default as it stands, and you can create something like this. This is mostly natively created in Behance. Okay, I added a few variations of my project, a poster that began in Photoshop, by the way. I love doing compositing things like this and turning them into video formats. So I showcased this process. This happened to be an Adobe Live as well. So I showcased the live stream here as a resource. I think this is okay, you know. From this point, from March 15, 2022, I've learned a lot. And I think there's a lot more potential to showcasing your work on Behance when you tailor your work as something custom that feels like you're navigating a journey to learn how you created this work of art, whatever it may be. In this case, for example, I've got here some vector projects that I created in 3D and I wanted to showcase them. So I've got here right at the start, I've got an intro, very important, just centers the whole thing. It gets us started on this journey. And then there's this point right here. You might not notice it, but there is a little bit of a giveaway right there in this one specifically. There is a line between this and this because these projects get uploaded separately. And this is where artboards are going to be essential for us in Photoshop because we are creating all of these pieces separately and we're just creating the illusion that they're unified. This is going to make your experience or the experience of whoever's on the other side, it could be a future employer, right? Seeing your work, they're going to experience this in a way that it feels a little bit more comfortable. I don't know, there is so much potential in the delivery of how you showcase your work as well as the work itself, right? And I think that's definitely what I put into practice here. This little wave right here creates an illusion also. So if you ever wonder how that is done, and then we have process here. We showcase our process. So this is an invitation for you to showcase more than just the final product, but also showcase the really cool steps that you took in order to get there. I absolutely love this part. I feel like this is actually the reason why I create artwork at all. It's the process, because I enjoy that process so much. So let's jump here into Photoshop. Lucky for you, you have some really cool free assets that I made available for this Photoshop challenge. And among them, you have this one. So let me go full here. You've got this one. So I made it pretty universal. I added in these graphics, which I also provided. But I made it fairly general so you can get a taste of how this is made in Photoshop, and you can start to replace some of these elements for some of your own that make it possible to keep a level of consistency in your artwork. So you can see here the illusion happening in this circle, so that's going to be important. And then you have some mock-ups. We learned about mock-ups last week, and it was a lot of fun, right? Creating mock-ups. There's so much opportunities there. So we created a mock-up of our own. So what we're going to learn here is how to navigate everything and replace this template that I provided for you and get a better, more comfortable understanding of artboards. So let's dive right in. I'm going to go here out of full. I use the F to go into full mode. And I have here open some of my previous artworks, right? The artwork that we created. We did type experimentations. We did a collage work using some assets that we brought in that were photographic assets and other generated on natively in Photoshop. We generated some of these assets like this plant texture right here, these clouds, these birds. That is such a cool journey that I just took to create this collage. I want to be able to highlight it as much as possible in this Behance platform that is giving me access worldwide, by the way. So it's like, wow, imagine on the other side, there's this huge audience that's going to experience this potentially, right? So we're going to want to showcase this in the best way possible. And so immediately I thought about bringing in the final artwork, because I don't know why, but I do this a lot where I work in reverse mode. I start at the end and then I go on for the beginning. Okay, so Voodoo Val says, this is a fabulous file. I'm glad you think so. I'm glad you think so. I hope it helps people get started. I know that sometimes we just need a little bit of a push. So I'm going to start here with this final asset. We created this mock-up. We generated this mock-up based out of a Photoshop file that we then generated into our own ratio because we have a horizontal file. Just generated it. It's nuts that we did that. But yeah, so we used perspective to add it into the billboard. And now I have that JPEG file, which is essentially my main hero artwork, I would say. Maybe secondary. Main hero being the neutral file. So I'm going to right click here. And what we're going to look for, it's going to be duplicate layer. I use this so much. And when I tell you I discovered it maybe my third year knowing Photoshop, I just couldn't believe I spent all that time. I mean, it's possible some things were new. I don't know if that was new then. Maybe it didn't exist. I don't know. But this is amazing. Let me tell you why. So I can go into Photoshop Live, the file, or I can go into my main file, which is this one. Cyn Lagos, Day 4 Challenge. Okay. So Cyn Lagos right here. Cool. I can even select whether I place it in a particular artboard. This is where artboards are amazing, because then I can choose, oh, this image I wanted in the process section, I think, or maybe in the middle section could be cool, right? So I can put it there and hit OK. And it seems like nothing happened, but it really just went directly into the process artboard right here. You can see this is my process artboard. When I collapse all of these here, which I've color coordinated because I'm really, really going for it here. And in the middle section, you see that this gigantic image has been placed in here, which is great because that's what I wanted. In order to make this smaller, I can pull here and kind of just continue to pull, or I can hold Option or Alt, and it does it uniformly, in a uniform fashion. Okay, so we can do this here and do it like this, right? Or we can also drag and drop, right, between artboards. That is also possible. I can do it and introduce it here at the second moment. I did provide this mock-up, which I seemingly created out of the blue. I added some textures. I made it a vector file, just like I demonstrated. I do want you to create your own mock-ups. I think that could be possible. Sometimes I look around my house and I notice that maybe some pictures that I take around my house can be perfect as a base layer for a mock-up. So really cool stuff can be created here. I'm gonna go here into my smart object, double click, and I did make the mistake of flattening this "your image is here" thing. So sorry. But what you can do is do a quick lasso selection, use generative fill, things I wouldn't have before, but now I do, and just hit generate, and it's going to get the context that I still want to keep the texture. I don't want to quite erase this and flatten it out. So there you go. So easy. I know that I can take that. I've used AI enough, Gen AI enough in my workflows to recognize when something I give it is too complex or it's a fairly fair game, you know? So now we've got that. And what I want to be able to do here is introduce another, the full image, another variation of the image. Let's use this one right here. So I like this variation. Don't have a JPEG yet. That's all right. I'm going to hit Shift Command E. Yes. All right. Shift Command E gives us that JPEG file, which we're going to use that same transfer process. Duplicate layer. This time we're going to duplicate it over to, what was our artboard called? You'll probably have to know that first, right? So the smart object we were working on was called, hey, Mr. Friend, here you are. Okay, Cyn Lagos Day 1 Challenge. We need to know that. And since I have them just called a variety of things, this is when I get in trouble. All right, duplicate, and we're gonna go Cyn Lagos Day 1, right? Yes, it's fine. Something about colors. It's going to be okay because everything is a little bit more forgiving on the web. And that's just how it works, you know. We get away with a lot on the web. When it goes for print, it's definitely important to know your color modes. I mean, it's arguably also important for web. All right, I'm going to hit Command on that base layer, and that's going to give me a outline selection of exactly the same shape. You can see there, even the little ruptures are there. We're going to add a mask, and that mask is going to be without holding any shortcuts because that's going to give us this. So now we have that cut out. And if we unlink it, we can move it around and switch our composition a little bit up to there. And something like this, right? What we're doing here really is we're creating variations in which our artwork will be experienced. What has happened, I think in reality, if we look back, is that we used to showcase our works in a lot of museums and things like this. At which point you would have to decide, okay, how do I want to frame this? Let's flatten this, save it. And how do I want to showcase my artwork? And people will think, okay, I'm going to use a different print mode. I'm going to frame it possibly. I'm going to put it under the slides. We're essentially doing that in presentation, so it looks more professional. You have more consistency in your brand. That's why these things can be a vital part of your process potentially. Now people have a different way to experience your artwork that's a little bit more exciting. There's so much to do here. Even this, in this section, I love to talk about 3 things. I'll define them for you so you can get started. I love talking about my goal, basically starting this project, the goal of the project, the challenge in the project, and finally, the solution of the project. That's all you really need in order to create an introduction. This is going to be important because in the demonstration, the visuals, we are actually showcasing the goal. We're showcasing the challenge. We're showcasing the solutions in our visuals. That's the guiding factor. It's not just beautiful pictures. And then at least that's what I hope I get to accomplish when I do these other examples here, right? Like when I bring you back to Behance here and I create things like this, or I bring you into my photographic journey, showcasing my work, in the streets. That one time I did this, it was super fun. I think that storytelling of it is just as important. We kind of tend to leave that behind for like immediate gratification nowadays. I don't know if that's it. Alejandro Gonzalez says, that is nice, fine texture. It is, isn't it? The collage and textures has been my go-to thing. I would say this month. I feel like I have themes each month for my own personal self. I don't know how that happens. The artistic experience, I would say that's how that happens. I was wondering, because there's only 2 streams scheduled on Friday. Okay, this seems like something else. Okay, moving on. I hope this helps you recognize the potential of not just Behance, but just showcasing your art, because there's just so many different ways this can really go. I find myself showcasing my photography and beautiful moments that I experience in different cities here in the United States. It's amazing, I really, really enjoy the response that I get. And in these spaces, I feel like there's a lot of wonderful people who are also showcasing their work, and they're showcasing their process, more importantly. And they're also receiving a good audience. Do you know what I mean? That's a wonderful, wonderful thing to look out for when you're thinking of the place that you want to focus in on. It could be anything. It could be YouTube. It could be Twitch. I don't know where y'all love to showcase your work, but I want you to have that question in mind. So as I continue here, I would replace some of these elements, for example, with some of our artworks here that we created. We did some type experimentations here, which were really, really cool. And this, sneakily enough, was also another example of using Artboards, because right here, I'm actually using Artboards. This is how you have these plus signs on either side, and it's a clickable canvas. This was born out of that time period when Illustrator had Artboards, but Photoshop did not. And people demanded it enough that it happened. And honestly, it's one of my favorite things. And it's so important because when I export, then I can go into export as, and I recommend adding a shortcut here. I use Command H because the shortcut there is some really convoluted thing. Go look at it. I promise you, it's like 500 keys, like I'm a pianist of some sorts. Change that to something else, because you will be exporting a lot. And in here, I'm going to find In here, I'm gonna find all my artboards and I can decide, okay, well, you know what, this Eve down here, well, that's not it, right? Like, I'm not gonna export that one. That was like a last minute attempt. And then we have some other ones we really do want to keep. So then we export them as JPEGs, PNGs, GIFs, if they're moving videos within Photoshop and things like that. So I have already done that. So what I want to do is introduce them here somewhere, but I don't have an area. And I did that on purpose because I want you to learn that you can also click and drag these anywhere you want and treat them as puzzle pieces to create your own variation. So if I want to add more artboards next to them, or I want to move around a layer, duplicate a layer, for example, I can do that. So for example, here I've got the plus signs that we saw earlier. So this right here. So what I can do here is I can hold Alt or Option and duplicate that entire piece and use some of these assets to rearrange a new composition to showcase some of the works. Maybe I can bring in, repurpose the type formatting, things like that. Right? And I can also resize it directly from here. So what I upload is actually about this size. So it's so modular. I think it gives you room for a lot of different things. And then in here, I can say, you know what? Let me remove that and put this next to it. This is the vibe that I've got right now. Yours could be totally different. It could be a different color palette, whichever it may be. And then let me go find those artworks, artwork reference. And I've got all my type experimentations here. So maybe I can showcase them like this, where you can still see the circle in the back. That could be cool. And it's just a matter of showcasing the process just as much as the final artwork, and then guiding the viewer through this part as well. Maybe those other circles are not gonna be my strength there, but just showcase your process. It will be a game changer in even spaces like this that are not too hyper stimulating. You're really just seeing a visual presentation. I find myself coming here a lot to get attuned to, and by here I mean Behance, to get attuned to what the world is doing and the world of design. That's how connected it is, frankly, with artists all over the world. I'll find inspirations from Nigeria. I'll find inspirations from Brazil. Like, it's really cool to have spaces like this. So I encourage you to try it. You might surprise yourself. I could be here a whole another hour, by the way. I think to me, this part is really fun to do. It feels like a step in the artwork process for me where I feel a little bit accomplished because I got somewhere and I did something and I finalized it. It feels like as an artist, you never really get to an end point, right? Like you never get to finish a project. There could be so many ways to take a project, so many directions to take a project in, and it seems like it's never over. So when it's over, it's a nice point of celebration to showcase your artwork and the process that it took to get there. So something like this would be really cool. And so as I export any of these, it's going to happen the same exact way. We're going to hit Command H if you've changed that shortcut, and we would be able to export all of these as separate files, right? Separate layers, which we can then upload directly into Behance up here and have your own examples of your art projects. So folks, this has been super fun. I hope you can join me on the next streams here on Adobe Live. I love showcasing my process in order to help yours And also, I hope you've been able to have a lot of fun in this amazing Photoshop challenge. I want to invite you into my YouTube channel where I showcase my editing process for my photography. And my YouTube channel is at Cyn Lagos. Subscribe if you haven't. If you haven't joined on a live stream yet, we will have one today at 6 p.m. Central Time. So thank you so much for being here. Have a lot of fun creating really cool stuff and hope to see you on the next one. See you on the other side.